Mr. Sam Mosley is in the house tonight. He's a musical legend right here in town. You know, I had the honor of meeting him a couple of years ago, working with him to get him on the cover of Living Blues magazine. And one of those photographs is over in the corner, a little tintype that he and I worked on together. He's just a joy of a human being, and just not only a great asset to the community, but just to the world in general. He's just a positive spirit, a beautiful soul. And he's got his family here. We got the nephew of Reverend Pinson, is that right?
That's right.
Yeah, Reverend Leon Pinson up here. So some more legends up here. Elder Roma Wilson and Leon Pinson. Most of the folks from Union County that I've known in the past, we've got their photos here, but we're going to do. Let me introduce you. This is my friend, Miss Libby Ray Watson from down in Pascagoula, the blues lady. Like me, she's got a little bit longer. She's been around in the road. She knew Reverend Pinson and Elder Roma Wilson and Sam Chapman and Big Joe and all these guys. And we're going to sing some songs that we learned from them and sing about them. And this is one of my dear friends, Mr. We call him Noisy, Mr. Sam Rorts. He's running the sound tonight. We've been playing music with him for 22 years. So if you notice, there's kind of themes around here. We got a Junior Kimbrough wall over here, like all this artwork here. A lot of it came from when Junior's unfortunately burned in 2000. I salvaged what I could and made the artwork from it. Same over here with the Oath of Turner and the picnic. All of the material from that Oath of Turner piece there came from the picnic grounds. So that photo I've got of him, everything in there came from the old picnic grounds that they since torn down. Got a quilt here found from an old sharecropper shack that I've honored some women from Mississippi on it. This over here is a Bessie Smith piece. She died at what became the Riverside Hotel. All of the materials from that was salvaged from the trash pile behind the Riverside Hotel to make a little shrine to her. Similarly, over here in the back, sorry about that, this piece about Robert Nighthawk, who lived there, that all came from the Riverside. And the first song we're going to do is honor this wall over here is all Robert Johnson. He died in Greenwood, Mississippi in 1938, and all the materials you see there came from the plantation where he died, and or the wood came from the old church where he's buried. And that last piece down there, all that little mosaic, that's all salvaged from the last remnants of the house where he died. So we're going to start out with a little song that he recorded in Texas called Stop Breaking Down. Well, but it's an archetypal song that everybody, including Big J Johnson. Who made this set list? Because I would work myself up on that one. Now I got another heart too.
Well, I told you last night you get to bring the extra lungs.
Man. I hadn't been exercising like this. Oh, we're going to do this too.
You hadn't been breathing much.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's...
Breathing's a whole other thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I recommend it. It's a good thing. Well, I don't know. A lot of folks are from Union County, live in Union County. Some folks are visited. But Union County doesn't really get the same recognition that, of course, parts of the hill country and the Delta and other parts of Mississippi. But there's some significant folks that either lived or came from this area. And really one of my all-time favorites and a big inspiration to me was Elder Roma Wilson. Lived over in Red Bank community. And I got to meet him in 1993 when he was playing with Reverend Pinson at the Sunflower Festival, and it just blew me away, just the power and the passion that they had for their music. And I spent some time visiting with him. Last time I saw him actually was 1998. He was 85 years old, and I just kind of fell out of touch with him. At some point he moved to Detroit, and I remember my earlier caption that I wrote for this thing talking about, in the last year of his decade of his life, he got to, well, I found out later that he wasn't dead. He lived until 2018 at 107. 107 is how long Elder Roma Wilson lived. And he was a gospel harmonica player and played what he called a choke style, which basically meant he took his older brothers would destroy the harmonicas to make them unplayable. And through the force of his lungs and his willpower, he would bend it back into tune. And he had the most powerful harmonica. Now that I've said that, I'm going to do one of his songs and I'm going to fill this one. What were you thinking? What was I thinking? But he was mainly known for a song called The Gospel Train. It's an old gospel song, and then it became kind of a civil rights anthem. So I'm not a reverend, I'm not a preacher. So I'm going to try to play in his style, the old gospel train, but I'm going to do more of the civil rights lyrics to it, unless I don't. So we'll see how this goes. There's our little tribute to Elder Roma Wilson. This train is a clean train.
Well, this does mention Ovid in this one.
Yeah.
This is a song I wrote about some of my heroes that of the blues that I knew back in the late '70s and early '80s, and they included people like Ovid, Jessie Mae, Johnny Woods, Fred McDowell, people like that. This is kind of my tribute to that. And Bill has to play harp again.
Yeah.
Really loud and hard. Thursday night, yeah, you all been down, I'm feeling good, I'm about to shake me down. He'll come to spirits, all in his hall, clock strike, midnight, moving, and then we'll sleep on. Yes, she's jamming, all night long. She's jamming, she's all night long. She's jamming, she can wobble, baby, under the breaker. Everything down, said, boy, you got to do it all right. Said Johnny Wood, I'm all in your mood. Scream like rain to see this. Jessie Mae, yeah, she don't shoot you with so real good, baby. Yeah, she's jamming, wobbles all night long. She's jamming, wobbles all night long. She's jamming, she can wobble, baby, under the breaker. Go, Bill. That night went wrong, yeah, so simple and so real. I just love how all the girls make you feel. Shake it to the beach, boy, you got to shake it to the blues. Come on now, shake it on down the right love. You're country best, well, she's shaking, she's wobbled all night long. She's shaking, she's wobbled.
Well, anyways,
Here, man.
I know. But hit up Libby afterwards. That's the title track off her new record, and she cut. What's that? Oh, you want to play that bang on that? Come on, baby. Anyway, it's a great record, and me and some of the guys from Tennessee played on that record with her. She got some with her. She wasn't gonna bring it in out of respect. It's not my show, but it is your show. People came to see you as much or more than they came to see me. So it's really, Libby Ray's she's a national and for sure a state treasurer. She's
The treasurer? Hey,
That doesn't mean you get paid.
we're all,
That means you have intrinsic value. That's what that did when they tell you that. It's like, you're a treasure. That means I get paid. No, man, you ain't gonna get paid.
some of that money you don't see.
That's it, yeah. Exposure bucks. We didn't get paid exposure bucks. That's it. Well, we're going to continue that on with another song that I put together, my little tribute to Mr. Oath Turner and the Fife and Drums family. You know, when I lived in Mississippi when I was a child for the first few years. I spent the summer of love in a pair of diapers running around in a chicken yard in front of a house trailer in Forest, Mississippi. That's my earliest memories. And when I started coming back as a grown folk, as they say, I mainly was all eaten up with that Delta blues and the Robert Johnson and all that stuff. But when I got here and started rambling around, I decided, you know, this is an amazing state with its own regional traditions. And I kind of fell in love with the hill country more so than even the Delta. So I started going to Mr. Oath Turner's annual picnics starting in the early 90s. And so eventually I decided I'm just going to write a little tribute to some of the stuff. I was there when Sade played her very first public performance at age 6. And it was a life-changing thing. So that's a part of this song. It's a song called Hill Country Picnic. note this, that's the first time I've ever played that song with one of Otha's goats in the room. I don't know if y'all notice on that piece over there, there's a goat skull. I can testify that's one of the goats from Otha's picnic because I personally took that thing and boiled it down in 1998 when they killed a bunch of goats to make barbecue goat sandwiches. Because you can't have a fife and drum picnic without some good moonshine and barbecue goat sandwiches. So one of the goats that gave us life, fife and drum music, is right over there. Yeah, Shawnee's, oh yeah.
So what's in the jar?
I got some goofer dust. It's not from Otha Turner's actual grave, it's adjacent. But it's like,
Ralph's grave.
yeah, exactly. It's the neighbor beside it. You know, I consider a lot of these things, you know, these are holy objects to me, you know. This is a kind of a secular religious exhibit. I remember when I got to go to Europe when I was in high school with my uncle. We went to Notre Dame Cathedral, and we went in there, and they had all these reliquaries, just bedecked with jewels and gold and all this filigree. It was incredible. And inside the little glass compartments would be like a little finger bone of like St. Bartholomew or the jawbone of St. Louis. And I was like, man, it just kind of blew my mind. It's like these humble sort of like little like viscera, you know, and it with all this bejeweled stuff. And I thought, well, everybody, you know, all my heroes in Mississippi leave their own reliquaries, and you know, we're not going to dig them up, but we're going to. This is the materials here are peripheral to them; they're not directly related. But it's my little, you know, religious tribute to my heroes. Speaking of which, that's my brain.
Yeah, we're going to feature Bill on with his fine saw blade. Sometimes sponsored by Home Depot, and they help us out occasionally. It's our instrumentation. This is a different kind of rendition of an old song called Dust My Broom, which is a Robert Johnson song. I knew one of them. I'm gonna get up in the morning, leave out dust my boots. I'm gonna get up in the morning, leave out dust my boots. I done quit the best man I've been loving. So my friend can get in my room. Oh yeah, you can have it. Oh, I'm gonna write a letter. Yeah, the telephone every town I know. Yes, I said I'm gonna write a letter. Yeah, telephone every time I know. It ain't over in West Memphis. Yeah, it'd be in New Albany, and I know. Yes, I know. Oh yeah, I know. I said I don't want no man. Telephone every downtown woman he meets. I said I don't want no man. Every downtown woman he meets. You know that kind of low down, don't it? gonna get up in the morning, leave out, dust my broom. Yes, I'm gonna get up in the morning, leave out, dust that broom. I'm with the best man I've been loving, so my friend can run my room. Well, I believe my time ain't long, yeah, yeah. Oh, I believe my time ain't long. Yeah, you're gonna wake up one morning, don't you know? Find your good girl, go. How about that song,
I benefit from the fact that most people have never heard a song, so you don't know if I'm playing it right or not. I count on that.
But I think, didn't the accountant tell us that if we don't play them, we don't get to write them
Oh,
off?
exactly. You know, yeah, so, you know, there's a lucrative careers in jug band accounting, so, you know.
Who knew?
Exactly. All right, we're gonna do Burnside Boogie. Do kind of an original song in the sense of the real blues tradition of original song, in that you basically hide the sources you steal it from. So you know how that goes. But that's you know, Pete Seeger said there's no such thing as plagiarism in folk music. So we're gonna test that on this one here. It's one of my first trips down here, and I started traveling Mississippi. Matter of fact, the same day I met Libby Race, same day I met Mr. R.L. Burnside. It was at the 1993 Crossroads Blues Festival in Greenwood, Mississippi. It was the first annual, because it would have been the second annual Robert Johnson Crossroads Blues Festival, but they got sued for using his name the first year.
Actually, I think mine got away with it 2 years before they got.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Before Levere
Before the-
stuck the
Before the radar got out.
the jug band accountants
Yeah.
on it. So anyway, this is Mr. R.L. Burnside is one of the reasons I started traveling to Mississippi. I heard the soundtrack to the movie Deep Blues, and it just blew me away. It's the first time I'd heard Junior Kimbrough's music too. So we're going to do a little tribute to Mr. R.L. Burnside called the Burnside Boogie. Mississippi, Big Daddy, like sure looks swell. But all I can tell you, mama, is well, well, well. I'm going down south, mama, I'll be there for a while. 'Cause down in Mississippi, they do it Burnside style. Joe hanging on the line. Burnside boogie with some magic candy moonshine. Jingle running up and down the spine. Burnside boogie with some overturned Our tribute to Big Daddy. Okay. Shake, shake, shake. Okay.
Everybody doing okay?
Yes.
You guys are awful respectful. This is a juke joint up in here. Don't they have moonshine? I told them that you're supposed to
It's
have.
bright in here. They got all this stuff on the wall they want to see.
Oh, I know. It's like, y'all don't have to act respectful just because y'all in a museum. Jill's giving me permission to let y'all let your hair down and boogie to it. This would be a good one to do it on. Which little Jessie Mae thing?
Jessie Mae Impill, and she's ready.
Yeah, she's right behind you right there. You be
With a-
careful.
with a gun.
Jessie Mae's got her gun almost pointed to your head right behind you. And the day I made that photo, I said I wanted to get a picture of Jessie Mae's gun. And she's like, she didn't have her hair did or nothing like that. So she said, you better not show my face. I said, Jessie, I'm just going to get a picture of you holding that 38 special that you're so infamous for. That's the same 38. I was taking her to Walmart one time and it fell out of her purse onto the counter there. She was trying to check out. And I thought, oh my God, she's going to get us killed. I have got in a mojo bag some empty 38 shells that she fired that gun over my head at her house trailer one night back in the 90s.
Well, you should have come up there in the dark unannounced.
I was already staying with her for the night. She heard a noise and I said I'd go check it out. She was after her stroke. She just flung the door open and flung herself out. But bam, 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 shooting up the neighborhood. So we all have Jessie Mae stories.
We do. Come on in, come inside, yeah. Drink some gin, come on, Sam boy. Drink some wine, blow your mind, yeah. Blow your mind away, take it, baby.
foaming in the middle part, as long as we stuck the landing.
It's a harmonica, puts it on your way.
All right. We got just going to do a couple more here. Working around the room, I'm trying to do tributes. I've done tributes to Robert Johnson and Oath Turner and R.L. Well, I'm going to work this side of the room right now. We're going to do a little Bessie Smith number here. You know, she's from my home state of Chattanooga, but she really made a reputation worldwide. She was really one of the first ambassadors of African American culture worldwide. She's, you know, that's the thing about we got to remember. You think about, you know, the blues. What's the stereotypical thing? Is the solitary man on the porch playing the, you know, in the Delta. Well, the thing is, the earliest stars of the blues were all the women. You know, the first one was Mamie Smith in 1920, and you had Trixie Smith, and Clara Smith, Victoria Spivey, Bessie Smith, and Ma Rainey. They reigned for the first 5 years till they got overtaken by the fellas. So we're going to take it back to the original blues divas, Miss Bessie Smith. And this song, it's coming up on 100 years old, but it's really relevant to today. It's called "It Ain't Nobody's Business What I Do."
Then we'll lay around the next day and
Sure you wanna try that again?
Well, I got it the second time around.
All right, so talk about your girl now. We're gonna close out with a little song. Lily's gonna tell you all about it, but somebody we both knew was a guitar evangelist from down in Marion, Mississippi, which
She's
is a
up here.
suburb of Meridian.
She's on the
The
quilt.
upper right part of the quilt, that woman up there with the guitar, and she's got the kind of Holy Spirit in her eyes. She was an intense, wonderful human being named Miss Cora Flynn.
Yeah, she couldn't really play guitar. She played real primitive, like maybe 2 chords, if that. They
Yeah,
were
two
kinda
might
half-
be.
half-
Kind of 2 partial chords. She just alternated and just made up these long, like 30-minute sermon, moaning, spiritual, like things like this.
Look how the world have made a change. Look how the world have made a change. Got so bad you can't hardly live, and it looks like the world have made a change. Mr. Policeman, he walks his beat. People are living out in the street. No respect, no helping hand. They give like trash next to a garbage can. Yeah, look like the world have made a change. Look like the world have made a change. Time's so bad, you can't hardly live it. Looks like the world have made a change. Children are living out in the cold, way too young to carry such a heavy load. People passing, they shuffle by, ain't even look at those children in the eye. Look how the world has made a change. Look how this world has made a change. Got so bad you can't hardly live it. Looks like the world has made a change. Little babies, nothing to eat. Worn out clothes, no shoes on their feet. Where's their mama? She's on the phone. Where's their daddy now? He's long gone. Yeah, look like the world has made a change. Look how the world has made a change. Got so bad, you can't hardly live here. Look like the world has made a change. Pestilence and disease got people falling down on their knees. Families lost, their money's gone. Banks are there to take away their home. Yeah, look how the world has made a change. Look how this world has made a change. Got so bad you can't hardly live here. Look how the world has made a change. Ice is melting, earth's heating up. Can't even drink a lap of water in your cup. The time is now, it ain't no joke. I see the fire, baby, I smell the smoke. Yeah, look how the world has made a change. Look how the world has made a change. Got so bad, you can't hardly live here. Look how the world has made a change. Done made a change.
appreciate every single person who came out to help support the local artists here and the music. So, woo, thank you. That's all we got for it. Does there anybody want to ask a question about something before we get down and start mingling and talking? No questions?
We have stunned them with our presence.
That's it.
I want to ask a question.
Okay.
When you started finding, when you went to these places and picked up these things,
Uh-huh.
what did you think was going to happen to them?
I had no idea.
Well, when did this?
Well, it started out, so like for instance, when I started running the roads in Mississippi, I can't even tell you what it was like. First time I stopped at Son Thomas's house in 1992 and met him. It was my life before, my life after. And I just, something about the Delta in the state of Mississippi and the folks that I was meeting, it flung a craving on my heart that I had to be here. I had to be around this. I had to be around the people. I had to be around the music. I didn't even have an agenda for it. So one of the things I would do, I would go around, I would try to find folks to visit with, folks I could learn from, all that. But some days I didn't have anybody to meet. I didn't know anybody. So I would just run the roads. And then I would just pull up, there'd be an old abandoned shack somewhere. You walk in and you just get the visceral sense of life lived. You know, hard lives, beautiful lives, you know, the whole panoply of human existence, you know, overcoming everything. Evidence of it in these old places, you know, like found like a handmade checkerboard. You know, it was just the most beautiful, humbling thing. Somebody didn't have checkerboard, so they just got they had some graphite pencil and a green pencil, and they just made a checkerboard out of it. And now they've moved on, either died or moved to another city, and it's abandoned. It's right there, and it's something about it. Just broke my heart. It's just the beauty of this handmade thing, just abandoned. So I just picked it up and took it home, just because I thought somebody saved it. And I just started doing that kind of, and my wife can testify. I started doing this 30 years ago, and you know, and it started piling up after a while. Just all these little things, just things that touch my heart. At my soul, I'm kind of what they call an animist, somebody who feels the spirit of you know, the spirit inside of physical object. You know, a lot of religions really kind of started, a lot of them are kind of really based on that sort of animistic thing. And especially a lot of African religions are animistic in nature. And that's just kind of who I am. I just feel, I fetishize these things that symbolize something. So after a while, they just started piling up at the house. And during COVID, I wasn't going anywhere. So I was like, well, I think I can start putting this stuff together into something. So I just kind of I would just get a pile of something. I'd say, okay, this pile of stuff came from this one place. And I laid it out, and I said, all right, pile, speak to me. How do you want to assemble yourself into making a statement about, you know, the life that was lived with you? And I just kind of lay things together, and like, you know, this little altar piece here, I just picked up all this junk at the pile, but I'm like, colors kind of work together, and I'm like, okay, these spaces want to go here, and I didn't see, the thing is, I've never been trained in this, I don't really know what I'm doing, so I just kind of just lay the stuff out until it kind of looked right, you know, to me. And it's, you know, eventually you're finished with it when you've got it delivered. Anybody who is a writer or an artist, you know that a work is finished when it's due. It's not finished because it's perfect. It's finished because you've run out of time. So, given more time, a lot of these things would have looked different. But we had to be up on the walls tonight. So this is what it looked like in the time that I had. So, you know.
That's spectacular.
Oh, well, appreciate it.
And he was still dusting
Oh, yeah. We were still putting it together last night. So we thank you for Mr. Steve that works here at the museum. Bless his heart. I got here at 11 o'clock in the morning yesterday when he could help me unload, and we left here at 11 o'clock last night. And I didn't leave the place. We were here for 12 straight hours. You know, we just hauling it in, and then we left at 11 o'clock last night. It looked pretty much like this, except I still was putting this together this morning, but all that. Any other quick?
Where are some of the other places you're exhibiting or have exhibited?
Well, this show will move to the Sheldon Museum in St. Louis in February of next year, on the same night that the great Bill Ferris, you know, longtime professor over here in Oxford, and used to run the NEH, wasn't it? Not the NEA, the NEH. Anyway, he's got a lecture tour where he's talking about his history with blues culture and how it's tied to his mission for civil rights and championing Mississippi culture. He's got Shardy Thomas and Luther and I think Ruthie Foster and different ones that they travel around. And they're going to do that show at the Sheldon in February. And I was supposed to have a show there the next year. But they contacted me a few months ago and said, do you mind moving your show up by a year? So that you can have your opening the same night that Bill Ferris and Sade and everybody is doing their thing. So I'm like, sure. We'll move it up a year. So it's going to be this stuff, but instead of one room, it's going to be 3 rooms.
Oh, that's good.
So as soon as I think I'm finished with this, now I got to make enough to fill 2 more rooms between now and February. So.
Let's go collect some stuff.
Yeah.
There is enough in the
And
backyard.
it's probably going to, I
That's
guess,
right, she was talking about stuff.
for an agency. And then it'll probably be next summer, I'm negotiating with some folks down in Meridian to maybe have several exhibits, like at the Max, and at the museum, and all that. After it leaves the Sheldon next May, it'll probably spend next summer down in Meridian. So you'll have another chance to see the expanded version. And then it'll go to MTSU next fall.
You've got one piece of building.
Yeah, there's a piece right now in Dothan, Alabama at the Wiregrass Museum. It's another one of the Robert Johnson pieces. It's, of course, a full-size deer skeleton that I found in the same field where the house was where he died. And of course, I just brought it home. That's one does. Yeah. Yeah.
You said your background was in art. What is your background?
Well, I don't know. The best person to answer that is my mom is here over here. She drove down from Tennessee for the show tonight. And my first cousin, Deborah, is here, and they came down together. So I come from a very unpretentious but very artistic family. Everybody in my family made quilts and corn chip dolls and painted and made crafts and stuff. Not as a art for art's sake, but just because, I've come from a long line of country folks, and that's just what we do.
And wordsmiths.
And a little bit, yeah. And my grandfather, my dad's side was a longtime journalist at the Tennessean, and I'm part of a 100-year family history working in journalism too. And that's essentially that's what this is. Everything in here I consider physical journalism. Everything I do, all the photographs. I mean, yes, it's my interpretation of a culture I'm not born into, but I have a deep, abiding love for, and it's my way of expressing my love and feelings about that. I want my photos to look like the music sounds. That's my goal, and that's what I've been doing for 30 years. But to me, all these other things it's no different from the photographs. In other words, when you're making a photograph, you don't impose your will on it so much. You interact with the person, you decide what to frame and when to select the moment. And that's basically it. There's a lot of limitations. And you have, a hold of these kind of journalistic standards of, you document, but you don't manipulate, you don't change. Well, with all these other things, there is a certain amount of manipulation and change, but it's still documenting a history. It's still collecting things that have been overlooked and neglected, and trying to breathe some life into them so that they'll speak to the place and the people from whence they came. So to me, my goal with the artwork is the same as it is for the photography. It's still essentially a very limited thing that I'm trying to do to speak to my feelings about the culture that has just enriched my life and it's changed the world. So to me, it's part of the same thing.
What do you call it? Exhibit?
Exhibit, we call it, thanks to you, she helped me come up with it, Spirit in the Soil. And that's really kind of what it comes down to because, especially Mississippi, I know we talk about the Delta, we're not in the Delta right now, but it is the richest, land really in the world. And, it's the land that built the culture for good and bad. And it's where lives have been lived and transformed. And that's the thing about it is, another thing about, culture comes from poor people. It really does. I mean, God knows we all want to be in the middle class and stuff. The middle class preserves the culture. the poor people and the rich people are kind of beyond the rules, and they're the ones that kind of create the culture. But most of our indigenous culture comes from poor folks. And really, the great creativity is almost entirely come in music and a lot of things from our African American culture in America. Almost all indigenous musical forms have originated in the African American community. And that's because when you combine poverty and genius, you get culture and creativity. And people, that don't have the resources are not going to deny themselves pleasure in life. They're just going to be innovative and figure out a way to do it anyway. And so that's where all of this comes from. It all comes from, poverty plus genius. You say what you will about the South. We got a lot of problems in the South. But we also have all the best artists, the best writers, the best musicians, some of the best painters, the best food. My God, and what is Southern food? What is Southern food? Southern food is somebody taking the good, the filet mignon and giving the poor folks the stuff you can't eat, and they're like, I can put some peppers in this. And I can boil it down for 3 or 4 hours, and I can put some greens with it. The next thing you know, the rich folks are like going, what's happening down in the shacks? I'm going to check that out. And they're like, damn, this is good. So the next thing you know, we have James Beard award-winning chefs, making collard greens and ham hocks and stuff. Because poor folks is the one that invented all that stuff. So, if you're from poor folks like I am, dirt farmers and stuff like that, be proud. I mean, we're the ones that, built this culture. We're the ones that built this country, and we've exported our culture around the world. Everybody, wants to be American, not so much because of our, politics or freedoms and such, just because they see the creativity that comes out of here. And, they're inspired by that. Think about that. The culture that mostly Southerners have created has gone all over the world, and that's our biggest ambassador for American culture is culture of poor folks, in the South. So, anyway, that's just part of my crusade. Hey, Shani.
Hey, your photographs that are like, 2D, as I would call them, are black and white.
Uh-huh.
Your textural art is where you add your color.
Right.
What was the decision behind it?
Well, it comes down to, like I said, I'm inspired by limitations. The one reason that I love, I've always loved art, but I thought I'd be a writer, thought I might be, do other things, but the blank page is completely terrifying to me because I am.
Literally just told her that.
Yeah, no, I'm just like, I'm paralyzed by choices because I'm just like, you can do anything. If you can do anything, you can't do anything. You know what I'm saying? Right, it's just like, I don't know where to start. But I love the fact that, so what part of it is that it's selection. Everything in here is like these, this color palette is determined by what's there. So when these structures and these places are falling down or burned or whatever, that's the color palette you get. And so I just pick whatever, of course I pick what inspires me out of that. And it's really funny, this is the first time I have seen all of this stuff together was yesterday. So this is as much a revelation to me as it is to y'all. Because I have just been, it's like when they made the nuclear bomb. Everybody had their one little job, but nobody got to see the whole thing until it blew up. So
It looks a lot different than it looked on our package.
oh, yeah. So I've just been making thousands of one little problem-solving thing after the other. Okay, how do I do this? What do I do? Okay, now I get this. Now this part, now this part. And now I've seen it all come together, and you're right. It does kind of have something of a...
That copy?
Yeah. But it's also conscious. So
What is it that makes you choose black and white for your photography? What is it that you feel that brings out that color?
Well, I had to make that choice early on. I know that other artists like Mr. Eggleston decided that the world is in color and not black and white. And it really is difficult to work in color because color is a subject. It is a subject. I mean, it's beyond the subject itself. And when I started in the 80s, there was all the Polaroid transfer, and there was all these sort of like, well, I call it process art. It's kind of trendy stuff. And I thought, okay, I'm in this for life. I want to make if I'm gonna spend my entire life making something, I want it something that's gonna last the test of time. I want it to be kind of timeless. I'm inspired by the 1930s, the Farm Security Administration, and all those great documentary photographers that worked in black and white. To me, it's just, you know, it's classic, it's pure, it's easier to deal with. You don't have to worry about somebody with a red tennis shoes in the background, you know, stealing all the thunder from your photo. It's all about composition and lighting. That's what it comes down to. So it was an easy decision for me, and of course, this is pre-digital era. And black and white was, you know, vastly superior, technically, than color. So all of this is film, you know, shot on old Hasselblad,
All
Triax
of this,
film.
he printed every one of
Yeah, all of
these
this, there's,
in our darkroom.
these aren't digital.
They're
Like
not
these
digital
these
pictures.
images over here, all these Robert Johnson sites, those are one of a kind 11 by 14 tintypes. They were made with a process that originated in 1851, and I'm shooting with a 120-year-old camera processing in the field, and that is the plate that came out of the camera. And now you'll notice that all of them are backwards, and that's because your eye sees the world upside down and backwards, but the optic nerve, by the time it goes through the brain, it corrects for it. But the image that's hitting on the back of everybody's retina right now is upside down and backwards. Now, digital cameras and modern cameras have that mirror in there to do that correction, but the original cameras from the 19th century did not have that correction. So you can correct the upside down by flipping, but you can't flip it around. In other words, horizontally. All the 19th century photographs are backwards.
So they thought Billy the Kid was left-handed.
Right, they were always talking about
Years and years.
Billy the Kid, the left-handed outlaw, and then somebody noticed that the buttons on his jacket look like a woman's buttons because the buttons are on the wrong side. It's like, well, it's a tintype. The picture's backwards. He wasn't left-handed at all. He was a right-handed outlaw because the picture's backwards.
Left-handed, or was he gay?
Right, there you go. Well, that's a whole other, that's a graduate course right there.
Hey, Bill, I never heard you talk about this, but those of us who know you and have known you,
For 40 years.
you know, it makes total sense that you are able to go into these areas and just gain this trust and invitation into these people's lives. But I think that it couldn't have always been that easy.
It was, and it has nothing to do. Well, I mean, it might have something to do with the fact, you know, people tend to treat you like you treat folks. But I will say this: people have asked me about this. How could you do all this? It's like, look, the big heart and the generosity of the people of Mississippi is everything. It's not me. I'm not.
Because these are very intimate. Your work is very intimate.
It is, and that's because, you know, the folks down here in Mississippi are big-hearted, amazing folks that many don't know as strangers. And so it's the fact that, you know, you come in and you're treated, you know, like family from day one. It's kind of hard to go wrong. And my whole thing is that, you know, I'm not a quick hit person where you come in and like for a magazine and, you know, you ingratiate yourself into a community and you take some pictures and then you go away. Well, I, you know, come back and give pictures, you know, give the pictures out. And I come back again, you know, you gotta bring folks groceries or something, you know, whatever, you know, a little respect. And you come back year after year after year, and after a while, it's like you're not really from out of town anymore.
Your family.
Just like, yeah, you just like, you know, and you just kind of, you know, just show up and hang out. And there's no greater place in the world to show up and hang out than Mississippi, because that's the thing I learned about faith. I learned more in Mississippi than that of anything else, because you can plan all you want. Say, I got a weekend, and I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna get some work done. And none of the stuff you had planned worked out, because it just didn't happen. But if you keep your eyes open and just sit around and observe, there's better stuff happening that you didn't know about. You just gotta be open to the serendipity of it. So it's been part of my spiritual process, has been enabled by the good folks in Mississippi. Just teaching me patience, which is something I do not inherently have. As my wife can testify, I am not a very patient person. But the folks, you know, folks in Mississippi have taught me patience. Tell me to, you know, sometimes it's like Mr. Sam says, everybody needs an opportunity to be told to sit down and shut up. And I've had some good folks that afforded me that opportunity, and I'm grateful for that. To sit down and shut up and listen. That's one of the powerful lessons I've ever learned. And I've learned it from many of my elders down here.
So Bill,
Yeah.
with the sculpture in particular, we talked about this in the past, but can you talk about like maybe your fine art influence? Because there's like a lot of Cornell and Tapier's were very.
Oh, yeah. Well,
You talked about that.
the thing is that there's such a dichotomy for what I'm attracted to and what I'm able to do. I love the freedom. I love music that has freedom in it. I'm huge. I made a joke about Ornette Coleman. I've done, during COVID, I've listened almost entirely to free jazz. And, I started out with Charles Mingus and all that stuff. But the artists that I love, Anthony Tapia is from the Catalan artist from Spain. I got to see an exhibit in 1992, changed my life. People that taking humble materials and just arranging them and transforming it just through juxtaposition. A lot of outsider artists, Lonnie Holly, Ronald Lockett, to me, is one of the greatest 20th century artists of all time. And he's almost not well known at all. He is my primary inspiration, Ronald Lockett. And if you look up Ronald Lockett's works, there's a book called The Fever Within. And he was a nephew of Thornton Dial, one of the greatest artists. Thornton Dial is probably the only African-American outsider, quote, outsider, untrained, visionary artist that ever got paid for his work, what it's worth. Because what happens is folks create this beautiful, genius work, then they die off and then they sell it for 10 times the amount. He was pulling in $100,000 for pieces of art while he was living. And Ronald Lockett was part of that whole family with him and Monty Holly and stuff. And the way that they would just take humble trash and materials and just rearrange it through their own spiritual vision was just gobsmacking. It was just absolutely. And so I just feel it like, this mission to try to honor their process, but doing it in my own way within this, in other words, going to like Junior's after it burned down and just salvaging what I could, and then thinking about how much I dearly love the Kimbrough family and how just dear they have been to me over the years and allowing me, into their lives and stuff, and making some things to honor, what Junior has created. That kind of speaks to what his music sounds like with this little humble pile of materials. But yeah, like what you said, Amy, it's a great question.
Well, that's it's all these folk art, outsider, disciplines that are obvious, but they're high art ones too, with the altar piece. You could say the Grunewald altar piece.
Oh yeah, well, I might be related to the Grunewald.
The scale you choose, this oath is larger than life, and that's who they were in life, and they were these commanding people within their own community.
I don't know how many of y'all knew Otha Turner, but I dearly loved and was terrified of Otha Turner. If you ever spent any time with Mr. Otha, he was one of the most, when I think about Moses in the Bible, when I think about these powerful Old Testament figures, I hear the voice of Otha Turner. To me, Clarksdale, who's our Ground Zero God? Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman is not the voice of God. Otha Turner, to me, is the voice of God. When I read the Old Testament and I think of that voice coming out of the clouds, it's Otha Turner. I spent a lot of time with Mr. Otha, and I never, ever, ever took for granted at any moment that he was just not going to call bullshit and tell me to leave. I was a deeply, deeply humbled person every time I was around him. But he was just a beautiful, generous soul that just, spent hours and hours and hours with me, just telling me the stories of his life and then letting me get them down on tape and transcribe them and, share them. So, yeah.
Last question for you. Generally people say, what's the thing that you hope to leave behind? What do you feel like your legacy is going to be? Like, what would you gain that you're going to pass on? My question is, out of all that you have done, what do you feel is your greatest reward?
Oh my gosh. Well, the thing is, I don't really, I would never look at it like that. I mean, I'm just like,
But no, there is something that soothes, that gives you that hug in the middle of the night. What is it? Don't listen to him.
I'm married to a pet. Right answer. It really is true. I mean, it's like, I do have to give a shout out to my beautiful wife, Pat, because if it wasn't for her generosity and her patience, none of it would be possible, because she has, she always says that, the only, the actual only other woman in my life is the state of Mississippi. That she's had to share with. It's really funny. I try to take myself out of the equation as much as possible. So I'm not the one that can answer that. I've had this manic mania for 30 years of like, there's voices that haven't been recorded. There's things that haven't been found. There's photographs that have not been made. And I don't know, in one way it's kind of arrogant to think, that you're doing this thing. But to me, it's really born ultimately out of selfishness. It's not, I don't want to say I'm some egalitarian, but no, I'm a deeply selfish person. I want to be around things that make me happy, people that make me happy, and what makes me happy is to run the roads and meet good people. Like for instance, when I was taking a picture of one of Robert Johnson's 3 graves, the one that we know he definitely is not buried at, Payne's Chapel. He had some crazy old girlfriend that said he was buried there. So I pull up, and it's in the Quito community, and there was a really 90-something-year-old man wearing crosses and stuff on the porch across the street. And he said, "Yo, you looking for Robert Johnson?" And I went over there and talked to him, and he'd lived there forever. I spent probably an hour talking with him, and he was just sharing with me, and it was just, I cannot even tell you. I'm a high anxiety person. Just the calm that I felt with a human connection to this person who just wanted to say something to me. And that afternoon, even right now, there's like all the Prozac in the world and all the meditation and yoga retreats would never do as good as spending 1 hour talking to this beautiful little man that lives across the street from Payne's Chapel. And what I got from that is more addictive than crack. So I just keep doing it and doing it and doing it purely for selfish purposes, for how it enhances my life and helps my spirit, and what I get from folks that are just beautiful, generous souls that have no reason to give it other than the fact that they just do. And
Can you keep doing that so we can benefit?
oh, as long as I'm alive, I've got more projects. At this point, I can't afford to die. I've got so much left to do. Oh, I've got a list like you would not believe. I've got to get done this fall. So yeah. So this is a comma in the process, and I appreciate y'all coming and giving me the encouragement and the feedback, because you do this isolated and you feel like you just kind of a little island on your own, and then you get this whole community coming out, and it's and you realize, oh man, I'm not by myself. There's folks out there.
They like it.
Yeah. Well, it's about sharing. It's about community. That's the most important thing. It really is. Mr. Sam.
Yeah, I just want to tell you how much I appreciate y'all working to keep this style of music alive. When I was young, I was running away from it.
Yes, sir.
I went out on the road with this group, and we wanted to play jazzy stuff.
Right, yeah.
But when we got out to Oklahoma, it was that kind of music out there, but we played after hours. The supper clubs went from like 8 o'clock to midnight. We played from midnight to 4 o'clock.
Wow.
And I never could wonder why I never could understand why a lot of the people that were at 8 to 12 would come to 12 to 4 to hear us.
Right.
And they made it clear to me that this, what y'all are playing, is the real blues. And so you're listening to y'all play tonight. See, I hear that.
Oh, bless
I
you.
don't know if anybody else pay any attention to that, but I do.
Thank you.
I just want to say how much I appreciate you helping keep that young girl alive.
That's some of the greatest words I've ever heard. Again, Mr. Sam Mosley, he's one of the creators and originators of the things that we are, an imitation of. We do it out of a pure love and pure heart. But this man is one of the folks that makes it possible for us to have something to learn from and then share that with other folks. And I'm very humbled by that because Mr. Mosley here is one of the originators. He's from Mississippi and was out there early on putting this music out there as an ambassador for the state and for the culture here. And we really, I tell you what, let's give him a stand. One of the most beautiful souls I've ever met in my entire life. And I was nearly in tears when I came in, and I was like, Mr. Sam, y'all need to pray for him a little bit. He's been having some health issues. And he's hanging in there, and he's got a good spirit about it, but I didn't think I was gonna be able to see him on this trip. But when I came in and he was sitting there with family, I just knew that, God was blessing me. And with, putting him in my life, and he spent his time to come out to hear our little humble thing that we're trying to do out here. Mr. Sam is, he's one of the greats.
Thank you. Y'all made it work.